Marcus Aurelius, one of history's great Stoic thinkers, assumed the role of Roman emperor between 161 and 180 AD, marking the end of a lineage recognized as the five good emperors. Despite occupying one of the most powerful positions of his time, he dedicated his life to the principles of justice and fairness. It is remarkable that despite having access to all temptations and desires, Marcus Aurelius chose to live an honorable life. During his reign, he found time to write a series of personal reflections known as Meditations, which became fundamental in Stoic philosophy. In the pages of Meditations, Marcus Aurelius shares precious advice on personal improvement. His attention turns to adopting a cosmic perspective and critically evaluating his own judgments and those around him. Leader of an empire facing significant challenges during his rule, Aurelius applied the Stoic principles he professed to deal with stress, emerging as a confident and effective leader. This is how he wrote 6 lessons for dealing with emotions. Lesson number 1. Train your perception. Marcus Aurelius advises us, choose not to be hurt and you will not be hurt. One of the important principles of Stoicism is to take control of how we see the world around us. In our daily lives, we have a habit of constantly judging everything that happens, every event we experience, and every person we meet. Each thing is given a classification, be it good, bad, dull, funny, beautiful, ugly, and so on. Although it's something we often do automatically, this practice can be tiring and have a negative impact on our lives. Let's use an example to understand better. If we call every moment of a difficult day terrible, this ends up coloring the whole day with an even more negative outlook. If we label a party as boring, it becomes the main story of that week. We often let our emotions influence these judgments, which means they're not entirely rational. In addition, labeling every moment can happen when we use too many exaggerated comparisons and expressions that magnify situations. For example, if your friend decides to move away, instead of understanding that his feelings have changed, we can tend to interpret the situation as if he has broken our heart. This shows how it's not the events themselves that make us feel bad, but how we choose to interpret them, often automatically. The Stoics, on the other hand, suggest that we should be careful to evaluate everything that happens and the actions we take. An intelligent strategy involves challenging our first opinions. In other words, having the ability to look beyond them. This means letting go of first impressions in order to assess situations in a more optimistic and reasonable way. For example, seeing the less exciting part of a party as a chance to explore a new environment and meet different people. Even if, in the end, there is no meaningful connection, going into the party without negative expectations allows for a more positive approach. Therefore, practicing change to avoid judging everything based solely on first impressions and emotions is an effective way to improve the way we perceive life. Whenever you form an opinion about something, it's beneficial to ask yourself, could there be a better or more positive perspective from which to interpret the situation? Marcus Aurelius pointed out that evil only exists when it is perceived as such. This implies that difficult experiences seem more challenging and negative when perceived in this way. Control over the impact of certain situations on your life is entirely in your hands. Stoics also encourage seeing anything negative as an opportunity or source of good. As part of the exercise to cultivate a Stoic perspective, there is the challenge called transforming the obstacle. Let's use an example. When dealing with a new colleague who is a slow learner and whose mistakes impact the company's bottom line, it's natural to feel frustrated. This colleague appears to be an obstacle to achieving effectiveness, efficiency, and profits. However, this situation can also be an opportunity for good. This circumstance offers a valuable chance to practice patience, hone your skills as a mentor, learn how to incorporate new team members, and deal with challenging moments. Each of these skills not only brings immediate benefits, but also plays a crucial role in sustainable profit growth over time. As Marcus Aurelius famously said, "That which stands in the way of action becomes the action. That which stands in our way becomes the way itself." Instead of jumping to conclusions, give yourself a moment to look at things objectively and impartially. In the process, you may discover that life is simpler and more transparent than you first thought, offering both positive and negative interpretations. By adjusting your way of thinking to focus on positive perspectives, past setbacks lose some of their impact, leading to a calmer and more balanced life. By looking for deeper meanings in each experience, you build a richer and more coherent internal narrative, fostering a sense of purpose. This change in perspective impacts not only emotional well-being, but also strengthens interpersonal relationships, since understanding and empathy become central elements in interactions. Allowing yourself a broader view contributes to a more enriching and meaningful journey. Lesson number 2. Embrace the virtues. To quote Marcus Aurelius, "Explore within yourself, for a fountain of goodness is ready to spring up if you persist in your search." A virtue is like a superpower of character, that is a way of acting that is morally right. This way of behaving is not only good for you, but also makes the people around you happy, contributing to the good of all. The Stoics liked the idea that everything and everyone is connected, sharing things and experiences, so what helps the good of all also ends up helping the individual person. For this reason, the Stoics truly believe that those who act rightly are those who dedicate themselves to the greater good, in other words, practicing the virtues. On the other hand, the lack of virtuous behavior, according to the Stoics, is related to ignorance. When life brings unexpected challenges, virtues can be like compasses, pointing you in the right direction and keeping you focused. Nowadays, this can be difficult because people often give up at the first hurdle. When faced with the first obstacle, they often let go of all logic and lose rational control. It's amazing to realize that people who have a lot of virtue show a special calm and tranquility. To bring virtue into your life, it is very important to understand and practice the 4 main virtues of the Stoics: wisdom, justice, temperance, and courage. In the view of the Stoics, wisdom means being able to differentiate between what is good, what is bad, what is neutral, and everything in between. It means being able to overcome emotions and let reason guide moral choices, looking and thinking carefully in order to do what is right. When you're faced with a problem, wisdom gives you the ability to analyze the options clearly in your mind. Justice, which comes from wisdom, is about doing what is right and balanced, both for yourself and for others. The Stoics saw this as a responsibility to oneself, to others, and to society in general. For them, this is the most important virtue, and so if you see something unjust happening and do nothing, you are also acting unjustly, according to these philosophers. Talking about courage, which is the 3rd virtue, it gives us the ability to act even when we are afraid. This virtue encourages us to do what is good for everyone, or to face challenges, even when we are not sure how things will turn out. Courage doesn't mean not feeling fear, desire, or anxiety, but rather making the conscious decision to move forward, overcoming emotional barriers. Finally, temperance, also known as moderation, refers to the ability to maintain a balance between extremes. This means having control over oneself, showing restraint and discipline. Marcus Aurelius highlighted the unique capacity for self-regulation that differentiates us from animals. Temperance values long-term well-being, even if it means giving up momentary satisfaction. To illustrate, think of an everyday situation, such as watching television. Spending hours watching programs can provide immediate pleasure, but it compromises the time available for other important activities. In this context, practicing temperance means setting time limits and knowing when to turn off the TV to balance entertainment with other responsibilities. Wisdom is essential to determine the right amount of time devoted before exercising control. Stoicism organizes both things and actions into categories of good, evil, and indifference. Seeking good, avoiding evil, and accepting indifference, according to what a person prefers, are important principles that serve as the basis for an ethical life. Marcus Aurelius, for example, focused on being the best person possible by following these virtues. Deviating from these virtues would mean promoting evil, engaging in actions such as theft, showing disrespect, acting recklessly, or failing to do good. Activities considered indifferent, such as enjoying a peaceful stroll, are not in conflict with these principles. It's important to note that these virtues offer more than simple personal improvements. They promote a state of serenity and composure. By aligning your actions with these virtues, you not only improve yourself individually, but also contribute to building a more harmonious environment around you. The constant practice of these virtues creates an atmosphere of mutual respect, where interactions are guided by ethics and compassion. This not only makes you better for yourself, but also for those around you, and can elevate you to a higher level. Before I go to number 3, if you're enjoying the content so far, it would help the channel a lot if you'd like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Lesson number 3, exercise the duality of control. In the wise words of Marcus Aurelius, true power lies in your mind, not in external events. Recognize this and discover your strength. The idea of having duality of control highlights the difference between what we can and cannot control, things like the weather, unforeseen traffic, or what other people think are out of our control. However, we can make decisions about things like our clothes, schedule, and who we choose as company. When you are faced with situations that stir your emotions, think about what you can control. What you can control is a reason to act. What lies beyond that, we need to learn to accept and embrace without letting it affect our well-being. This approach builds a solid foundation for facing challenges, strengthening resilience, and promoting a more balanced life. A very important part of the duality of control is amor fati, which translates as love of destiny. By fully accepting life and everything it brings, you develop a constant affection for what happens. Even if we have no control over what will happen or the situations that will arise, the decision to love life remains in our hands no matter what. Imagine, for example, that you feel very sad about not getting your dream job. It's normal to feel this way since things didn't work out as expected. However, it's important to look at this situation in a different way. Instead of seeing it as a total defeat, examine the elements that led to this outcome and use them as a basis for making positive choices. That way, even when you face challenges, you strengthen your ability to find solutions and maintain a resilient love for life's journey. If you didn't get the job, it may have been for reasons you can or cannot control. If the failure was the result of your own actions or decisions, there is room for improvement. Working on these areas and trying again in the future is a constructive way of dealing with the situation. On the other hand, if you weren't selected due to external factors, such as favoritism or not fitting in well with someone on the hiring team, this is out of your control. In this case, understanding that the opportunity may never have existed can help you avoid unnecessary frustration. Embracing your destiny means detaching yourself from fixed results and external success factors. For example, if you dream of being a writer and define your success based on book sales, you're putting your achievement in the hands of the literary market, something you can't directly control. However, if you measure success by satisfaction with the final work or the effort invested, you retain control over your journey. Furthermore, it is crucial to realize that by adopting this perspective, you are not being passive about life. On the contrary, you are elevating yourself to a state of active and intentional awareness. Accepting fate is actually an invitation to direct your energy towards excellence in the process, rather than being overly influenced by the end results. This mindset not only allows for a greater appreciation of the present, but also reduces anxiety related to external expectations. Because by embracing the journey, you free yourself from the bonds of excessive worry about the future. Focusing on what we can influence and committing to accepting what is beyond our control not only brings an inner calm, regardless of what happens, but also gives a deeper meaning to each step of the journey. By actively participating in life, you become the builder of your own experience, shaping the present moments with wisdom and intention. This approach not only makes your personal journey richer, but also contributes to your overall well-being as you place yourself as the author of your story, enjoying the authenticity and fullness that each moment offers, even in the face of adversity. Do you find it difficult to accept the things that happen in your life that are not in your control? Comment here with your experience and I'd love to help you. Lesson number 4. Adopt a broader perspective. In our final quote from Marcus Aurelius, he eloquently shares Plato's wisdom. When you want to talk about people, it's best to adopt a panoramic view and see everything at once. Adopting a broader vision is essential for gaining mental clarity, especially when we are surrounded by challenges and problems in life. Sometimes we feel overwhelmed, as if we're carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders, just like being in the middle of a crowd in a traffic jam, where the whole city seems cramped. However, by changing our perspective with a few steps, we can see a totally different reality. By stepping back and observing the vast tapestry of our world and existence, we realize how small our personal experiences are and how insignificant we are in the grand scheme of things. This reflection helps us to let go of our ego, recognizing that not everything in the world revolves around us and that we are no more special than anyone else. This change in the way we see reveals a wide world beyond what we find right in front of us. People often forget that their own experiences and perspectives are not the only important ones, even in their own lives. Think of someone who has had a bad experience with sporting activities. For that person, it can be hard to imagine that sports can bring joy and community to other people. This is unless they are consciously open to the possibility of different experiences. From time to time, it's crucial to stop and ask myself what I'm missing or what I haven't fully understood yet. This practice of self-evaluation has many advantages. Consider this situation. You need to decide whether to stay in your current job or accept a job offer elsewhere. This choice can be challenging, especially if you're not sure which option aligns better with your goals. Although your current job offers stability and you have doubts about the extra responsibilities of a promotion, the temptation of a better salary is very strong. Feeling trapped in this dilemma is understandable. Have you thought about exploring a completely different field or dedicating yourself to an extra project that complements your current responsibilities? This can be an interesting choice to shift focus away from less exciting tasks and discover many opportunities in life that you may not have realized. Adopting a broader perspective, rather than focusing only on immediate concerns, can be a valuable way of making more informed decisions. Broadening your focus is not only useful for defining what is most important, but also for forming ideas and fully understanding a situation. It is essential to think about all aspects and possibilities when faced with a given situation. Furthermore, taking a step back means temporarily distancing yourself from personal opinions and prejudices. By letting go of your own preferences for a moment, you can gain a new vision and reflect on the people around you and your responsibilities towards them. In everyday situations, a seemingly small action such as throwing garbage on the floor may seem unimportant. However, when you stop and broaden your vision to think about the world and the possible consequences, if everyone acts in the same way, you will realize how small your desire is compared to the well-being of the planet. This exercise in reflection provides a more complete and conscious understanding of your actions in the wider context. As mentioned before, the Stoics placed great emphasis on the idea that all things in the world are interconnected, and that improving the world in general contributes directly to personal well-being. Therefore, taking a step back and seeing things from a global perspective, rather than focusing only on your own life, becomes very important when facing important decisions, challenges, adversity, or change. You have the ability to ask yourself reflective questions, whether in the heat of the moment or later, perhaps during a walk in the fresh air, or while engaged in an activity you enjoy, something that Marcus Aurelius greatly appreciated. These thoughts offer the opportunity to deepen your thoughts and actions. For example, while in a moment of emotion, it may seem unimportant to ignore small friendly gestures. By taking a step back and reflecting on all social interactions, considering that others may also be ignoring friendly gestures, you realize the unimportance of the impulse not to practice kindness compared to overall well-being. This exercise in reflection gives you a broader and more conscious view of your actions in the social context. As mentioned before, the Stoics firmly believed that everything in the world is interconnected and that the general improvement of the world also directly benefits our personal happiness. Therefore, taking a step back and considering the world as a whole, not just your own life, is extremely important. By adopting this global vision, you gain a broad perspective that frees you from unnecessary limitations, prejudices, or doubts. This approach gives you a deeper understanding of your role in the grand scheme of things, fostering a clear sense of purpose and connection with the world around you. By integrating yourself into the wider context, your individual actions acquire an expanded meaning, becoming an essential part of a collective effort to improve the human condition. In this Stoic way of thinking, when you seek to grow and develop, this connects beautifully with global progress. By improving yourself, you bring something positive to the whole group. Therefore, observing the world in this way not only makes your personal journey richer, but also strengthens the idea that we are all active agents in building a more special and harmonious future. This not only makes us more humble in relation to society, but also gives us a clearer view of things, showing us how they really are. One of the things we develop is to make wiser decisions when faced with life's problems. To this end, I've left a link in the first comment for you to see how the Stoics make these decisions. Lesson number 5, learn to control your emotions. Marcus Aurelius advises us not to let our feelings control the way we think. He encourages us to abandon falsehood, selfishness, and irritation. Acting impulsively, guided by feelings, often conflicts with a logical approach, and there's a reason for that. Our own feelings have the power to change how we see things, so if we want to keep a clear mind at all times, it's important to learn to control our emotions. Marcus Aurelius points out that the emotion of anger in particular does more harm than good. Contrary to what many people think, controlling our emotions doesn't mean hiding them. When we feel intense anger, such as in situations of betrayal, controlling this emotion doesn't involve denying that it exists to ourselves or others, or pretending that everything is fine. This feeling will remain, even if you try very hard to hide it. According to the Stoics, controlling emotions such as anger doesn't mean trying to stifle them, but rather redirecting them. So when you're angry, ask yourself what you can do with this feeling. Although shouting at the person who hurt you may seem like a tempting choice, will it really ease your pain or improve the situation? Will it help the person who betrayed you to grow up? Think about the actions you are inclined to take and assess whether they are constructive. If they aren't, look for ways to express your emotions in a positive way. Having a quiet conversation with the person who hurt you, explaining your feelings and trying to understand their point of view can be more effective. In addition, writing in a diary, exercising, playing video games, or doing any other activity that helps release anger are all options. Remember that anger itself isn't real, it's a feeling you interpret. As rapper Drake once used Stoicism, he said, "I call it the 72-hour law. If it lasts less than that, it's because that feeling isn't real." And the vast majority of the time, the feeling isn't. Another interesting example is when we feel anxiety or fear, emotions that cannot simply be ignored. However, it is possible to direct them in a constructive way. Instead of letting anxiety stop you from taking action, look at it as a personal challenge. Use it as motivation to carry out actions that make you anxious, acknowledging it throughout the process. Let's imagine that you feel great trepidation at the thought of asking your boss for a raise. For many people, this fear becomes a reason to avoid taking action and succumb to anxiety. Others see anxiety as something to be suppressed and ignored. However, neither of these approaches needs to be the only option. Instead, the fear you feel can be expressed in a healthy way and even be useful. For example, this fear can lead you to anticipate possible challenges, making you consider all the questions your boss might ask and the counter-arguments you might face. This way, you can prepare properly and develop a plan to deal with each possible scenario. However, it's important to point out that fear can be a positive force that pushes us to move forward, challenge ourselves, and grow as a person. In doing so, we show ourselves that we are capable not in spite of fear, but partly thanks to it. In this context, it's interesting to recognize the presence of anxiety throughout the process and reflect on how admirable it is to try to overcome it. By developing the ability to efficiently redirect intense emotions, we can achieve a serenity that persists regardless of the circumstances, ensuring that our emotions don't get in the way of our ability to think clearly and make conscious decisions. Lesson number 6, Principle of Mental Reserve, Prosochi. The Stoics highly valued the idea of cultivating a mental reserve in relation to external events. This means understanding that, although we have no control over what happens around us, we can control how we choose to react to these events. Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher, pointed out that suffering does not come from the events themselves, but from the way we interpret and judge those events. So what really happens is not just an event followed by a reaction, but an event, an interpretation of that event, and only then a reaction. And well, how could we put this event into practice in the short term? When faced with a situation that would normally provoke an intense emotional reaction, take a moment to consider your response. No matter how anxious or stressed you are, resist the temptation to respond immediately. We know that when we're feeling overwhelmed, that's when we have the worst possible and often irreparable responses. Ask yourself if the situation is really under your control. If not, focus on accepting what has happened and direct your attention to what you can control, your own attitudes, choices, and perspectives. Remember that your emotions are influenced by the interpretation you give to events, and you have the power to choose a more balanced and serene perspective. In addition, the practice of mindfulness can be a useful tool, providing a deeper approach to cultivating emotional wisdom. By focusing on the present moment and observing your emotions without being automatically carried away by them, you develop greater awareness and control over your emotional reactions. This awareness not only translates into a deeper understanding of yourself, but can also help cultivate calm and serenity, characteristics valued by the Stoics. The practice of mindfulness, when integrated with Stoic philosophy, extends beyond emotional control to a more holistic understanding of existence. It allows you to be more connected with yourself and the world around you, making it easier to identify and appreciate meaningful moments. By developing this skill of attentive observation, you not only face challenges with greater resilience, but also live a fuller and more conscious life. In line with the Stoic principles of acceptance and focus on the present, controlling your emotions is essential for maintaining peace of mind. But to maintain this peace of mind, it's not just by mastering these 6 lessons, but by having the discipline to keep them. If you control your emotions and are disciplined, you will be unbeatable in the face of life's adversities. Click on the video on the screen and see right now how to become unbeatable.